to broadcast, and so if the guys on the coast aren't there, they'll be able to see the lecture later.
Okay. I'll do it by Zoom.
Okay. All right. So so I just barely posted this, and I posted the code. Well, actually, I modified it a little bit. Like I said, I would. I found out the reason. We'll go over that at the very beginning. The reason why the states weren't showing up, the aggregation level of the states, showing the mean earthquake value. I updated that. I'll show you what I did. What I mean by that. And then you need the stage.js file to go with it. That's the GeoJSON for the 50 states. Uploaded those two. Uploaded the video, or put a link to the video for last time that we met. And then I put in a little assignment, and you probably should be able to understand this assignment right now, but maybe at the end you'll have an even better idea of what you want to do. I put that your assignment will be to use turf.js to filter the content of a layer spatially or through an attribute query. So I think it'd be cool if you did it spatially, but it might be more important in your particular case for your final project to do an attribute query. So I let you do either one of those. It should say an attribute query, I guess. So the layer you choose is up to you, but you can use the earthquakes layer or any other set of GeoJSON data. You could find some layer on ArcGIS online, or remember, to make it into a GeoJSON layer, all you have to do is add it like we did in, I think it was last Thursday. Anyway, it was last week for sure. You add it. Leaflet, BSRI feature layer. You add it as a feature layer, and if you add it as a feature layer, it turns it into GeoJSON for you, and then you can interact with it, just like we've been showing demonstrations of up until this point. So, in fact, I don't think the additional information that I'm going to show today will take very long. So maybe we'll show an example using an ESRI layer instead of using the earthquakes layer that we've been using. But first, let's do that. I'm just going to talk about the change that I made, which is in this section. So the version that's uploaded, I changed this section a bit. And basically, I just changed the logic because my logic was incorrect. And that's what I knew was the case, but I didn't know how I was making that incorrect logic error. I don't know why this is. It's not recognizing the fact that I moved that down. If I resize the page. There we go. Okay, so refresh it, and you can see that some of the states are colored orange, and some of the states are colored red. Before they were, I think they were all colored red. Was the mistake that we were making before. And so the cutoffs, which are shown right here, this is the highest value, and this is the next highest value, and then this is like 50%, and it's already not a number. So those are the cutoffs that we generated, and my logic was incorrect in applying those cutoffs. So let's look at how I changed it. That's this code. I still, my smallest cutoff is still not a number, so effectively it's the same as everywhere else. But we could add another break and try to fix that, but that's not that important. The the code was originally based off of this code for symbolizing the colors of the and the size of the dots. Remember that? So that's actually that's no, yeah, that is. And so he said here our logic is saying, okay, if the magnitude is greater than the first break, which the first break, sorry, not the first break, the second break. The second break was at the start of the last class. So the break, let's say the break was, I'm just going to make up a number, was at 4. So what we're saying is the largest earthquakes are from 4 and greater are the largest earthquakes. So that's what this logic is saying. If the magnitude is greater than the break, which is, let's just say it's a 4 on the Richter scale, it's going to be large. Okay? Else, in other words, if it doesn't satisfy this, if it's smaller than the magnitude 4, else do this. Else if feature.properties.magnitude is greater than the start of the, it's the very first number, but it's the start of the first break at 33%. Because remember we used 33 and 67. So in other words, if it's not greater than 67%, 4, then check to see if it's greater than 33, which let's just say it's earthquake Richter scale 2.5. So it says, if it's not greater than that, check to see if it's greater than that. If it is, give it a value medium. If not, then give it a value of small. So we only have 3 categories there, large, medium, and small. Now we're using else if to go in between. So a way to say this in standard English might be to say, it's a large earthquake if it's greater than the second break point. If it's not greater than the second break point, check to see if it's greater than the first break point. If it is, then it's a medium earthquake. All others are small earthquakes. So that's a way to say that. Now I tried applying it to my other code, it didn't work. And so I modified the logic a bit. Here, I don't use else anywhere. See that? There's no else statements in this block of code. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm first setting up a new variable that I'm only going to use for the tests. And I'm going to call it, I call it SYM, which could be called anything. I just call it SYM because it's like a symbol. It's the beginning of this. So I set up, what I'm doing here in the first line that's highlighted is setting up a default symbol. So the default symbol will be the symbol if it doesn't fit any of these other criteria. Now, since we're dealing with some not numbers, that's why there'll be some default criteria. All right, so if, wonder why it's shaking so much. Of course, you can't see it on the screen. If the feature, the magnitude of the feature, which now we're talking about the average magnitude, if it's less than 2, then assign it a large value. In other words, if it's less than the largest earthquake, give it a large. So basically, if I ended my code right here, and I can do this real quick. If I ended my code right here, everywhere where there is an earthquake is going to be red, because so that everywhere is going to be red. Why? Well, because I've just said if there's a number and it's less than the largest value, give it a red. So that's what this line of code did. Now this line of code says, okay, if there's a number and it's less than the second cutoff, make it a medium. And so, oops, I forgot to save it. So now the mediums get shaded orange. And finally it says, okay, if it's less than the very first cutoff, which is not a number. So basically right now, this line of code isn't really, this line of code right here, or this code group isn't really executing at all. It's not doing anything because the third line, the third group is not a number. If I were to go back up here and try to find a better number to go with, maybe 96 will work, I don't know. I may get some of the states turning yellow. No, it's still not a number. So if I go 97, 98, it's just that the boundary between these two is so small. There's just not very many differences. And so there's just so few differences in the amount of states that have earthquakes that it's not doing anything to manipulate those values. So just leave those the way they were. This is 97. But if I was dealing with some other data that had a lot of range to the possible values, I could divide it up into 3 classes. Basically, what's happening is there's so few values to separate that we can't create 3 classes. But the code would work for 3 classes right now. It's going to create a high, medium, and low, but right now there's nothing in the low class. No cutoffs. But this code works. And so you can see that basically what it's doing is creating a default symbol, and then it's assigning all those with numbers, everything smaller than the largest number, it's assigning it red, and then it's going through and saying, okay, well, now if it's smaller than the second break, change it from red to medium. So I'm not using else if. I just go ahead and assign it all one color and then assign medium and then small. So I changed the logic to get it to work. You'll find that when you do programming like this, there's often more than one way to get it done. I just found a way that worked for me in this case. So that's the difference there. I don't think the only other line I added was down here. This was just an experiment as I was doing it. Basically, this console log, every time I click on a point, it not only does it show the pop-up as it did before, but now it also just logs the event. Remember, we talked about events. So it's clicking. We're clicking a feature, and we're getting an event, and it's just logging the event, telling us about what sort of data we've clicked on. Okay. We can get the layers, all sorts of things. Actually, I put f.target. If you just say console.log and the name of so now I get the whole event object. So I could find out what the latitude and longitude was that was clicked. That's right there. And that's actually one of the things that we'll talk about today is building a GeoJSON feature from that click. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and save it up to this point. And then let's talk about events again really quick. I think that, yeah, we're good. We're good there. I also remember at the end of last lecture, we discussed filtering by a state. That's still in there, but I changed the output of this filtered data set. Instead of displaying the filtered data set, I'm only displaying the tagged data set. This is just a tag data set. If I replaced tagged with filtered, and I refresh, then I'll only get the filtered data. That's filtered for California. I could filter it for any other state by just changing this word. I obviously have to spell it right. So now it's filtered for Nevada. I've got the Nevada earthquakes. All right. California. Okay, I'm gonna change, just leave out that. So basically, all I've done is swapped out which data set is being displayed. Is it the tagged data set or the filtered data set? Remember, the tag data set is also a derived product. So the original data set was states data. We tagged it by doing a spatial join and assigning every dot the name of the state that it was in, and then filtered says, okay, let's take out all the ones that don't meet a certain criteria. So this is a workflow. We went from state data, we applied spatial join, and then we applied a selection operation. We could have done that in our GIS. Could have done it in Model Builder, but now we're doing it online. We're getting it done online. All right. So let's review events real quickly, because that's what we're gonna talk about today. So my goal is for this particular demonstration is that I'm going to capture a mouse click event on the map, and I'm going to then zoom to that area and only show the earthquakes that are nearby that area, that are within, let's say, hey, we'll come up with a number when we get closer. Before we do this, Heather, is anybody there? Yeah, down on the coast. Heather, are you there?
No one's here.
Okay.
She's here.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. I'm just going to turn the volume down, but if that's interesting. I'm turning the volume down on y'all. If somebody does show up, just let me know by modifying the camera or something. But just turn the volume down because we can hear some banging and whatnot. All right, which is fine. I'm just turning the volume down, just so you know. We can't hear you anymore. All right. Okay, so that's going to be our goal here. So we need to use turf.js a little bit to do this. So what we're going to do is first of all, we're going to use turf.js to create a GeoJSON feature, and then we're going to use that feature to filter the earthquake points by. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to care whether they click on. So this event right here is for when they click on a layer. I want to allow them to click anywhere on the map. I want to say, okay, you can click anywhere on the map, and we're going to filter your point. We're going to filter the earthquakes based on the point that you click. So that's why I need to use map.on. In the Lecutre documentation, we could go to map, events, and these are the events. So map.on creates lets us attach ourselves to one of these mini events. So we've got click, double click, mouse down. If we were, maybe we should actually use double click. That might be interesting, because right now, if we used click, it will fire. Okay, so let's just use click for a second. just to see. And then you say, you give it the name of a function. I'm just going to write my function in. Function alert, and say, you clicked. It's a simple function. And so now if I refresh the page, we've done this before. We did this back when we were doing the I think the Walker science stuff. So click on it. Interesting. So I don't know why the map doesn't fire. Didn't expect that. When we click other places, it only clicks when we click away. Let's see what double click does. Okay, we need this to be a little different. Actually, this is fine. Okay, that's fine. So right now, it's only going to click when we click on the map, but there's also no feature there, because if there's already a feature, then it will, then it's going to show the, it's going to show the pop-up for that feature. Okay, I'm going to fix that by also making a event fire when somebody clicks on the map. Okay, I mean on the feature. So how can we do that? Well, that's pretty easy. We'll go up here, and here's our GeoJSON for the states. Okay, we've got to assign a name for this particular layer. I'm going to call it states. I'll just call it states layer equals GeoJSON. Now I can come down here, copy this line of code, and then type in states layer dot on double click. So now if I double click on, thank you, well, that does matter. So now if I double click, not defined. So I put, oh yeah, one more thing. I'm actually going to call this states layer here. We need to make this a global variable because this happens inside of this this operation. That happens inside that operation. So we need to create a global variable. Lots of times we do this at the top. It doesn't really matter. Var, oops, states layer. All right, so now if I double click, oh, okay. All right. So right now it's saying it cannot read property on of undefined. And the line that it's executing on is 151. So right here, it's saying that states layer doesn't exist, it's undefined. So I can't assign an event handler at this point. Why is it, can anybody tell me, because this would be a good thing to know, why is it that states layer is undefined at this point, when in fact I defined it in code that's written above this point? Can anybody think of why that might be? When does all of this code execute? First of all, what does this function do? $.get.json. What does that do? We talked about that a few weeks back, but what is that line of code doing? It takes that GeoJSON and converts it into point layer, right? Okay. But how does it, if you think about what's going on in the computer world, what's occurring? It's actually the A. I don't know if we've talked about this too much, but this is the A in Ajax that's going on right here. It's making a call, right, to a server. This line of code. This line of code is making a call to this server right here. So in other words, when we come down and we're executing this code, this line of code says, okay, I've got a function. It's bundled in with my it's bundled up in with jQuery. But this line of code is going to go out and say, get some GeoJSON on another server. And so it goes out and gets the data. That's what this does. And when it's done getting the data, it sends the response back into this function. So this function right here does not execute until after it's done getting the response. So what happens is, actually, that's not going to go anywhere. What happens is, as soon as the document's ready, it starts executing this code, okay? It gets to this line of code right here, and it sends off a request to go get those GeoJSON. But it doesn't do any of this code until it gets the response back. So it sends off the request, and since computers work really, really fast, it sends off the request, and then it just keeps going. Okay, this is where that ends. So at this point, all the code that I just scrolled through down to this point does not get executed until the response comes back from the server. So it sent off the request, and immediately it goes down here and tries to attach an event to a layer called map.on. Immediately attaches an event to the map on click. And then when it gets to here, it tries to attach an event to the states layer. The states layer hasn't been created yet because this function hasn't executed yet. It will just milliseconds later, but it hasn't executed yet. So all we need to do to get this to work is simply put the states layer function up into there. So now this line of code won't execute until until this function has been run and the states layer has been created. Now if I refresh this, I should not get an error. And when I double click, still don't get any values. Maybe I have to remove, I was not aware of this, but it looks like I'll have to remove the pop-up. Let's see if it'll work now. Because that seems to suppress, yep. So having a pop-up seems to suppress the event. All right, so what I did was removed the pop-up code so that now the double click actually works. I'm going to change these back to click because double click doesn't matter. Change those back to click, refresh, and now when I click on the layer or when I click off the layer, it will run this. So I can find the earthquakes that are within a certain distance of any point that I click on the map. All right, that's what my goal is. So I have to write a function to do that. I'm going to go ahead and move this one up there too. Control X. I'm going to move, even though it doesn't need to be here, I'm going to put them together. So they'll execute at the same time. And I really want them to execute the same function, right? Anytime the user clicks, I want them to execute the same function. So I can give it the name of a function at this point right here, rather than giving an actual function. So let's come up with the name of a function. We'll call it a user click. So now the user clicks and it'll run the user click function. Right? I have to write the user click function. It doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to write it. So say var user click equals, and I come up with the name of a function. I say function user click is the name of the function. It's kind of convention to use the variable e for the event variable. So when this function runs, e is the name of the variable that the event generates. Okay, and it's depending on what type of event is happening, it's going to generate different information. So I think the first thing that will be useful is to just log that event to see what it produces. Because what we want is the latitude and longitude of that event. Okay? That's what we want to get. I'm going to refresh this, and now when I click anywhere, I'm going to get information. And notice that one of the things I get is latitude, longitude. Latitude, longitude. Whether I'm clicking here or there or anywhere, I do get latitude, longitude. So I could actually log that. That would be e.latlong. I think that'll work. Let's see. Is it LNG? LNG. So now refresh, and I get latitude, longitude. Anywhere I click, I get a latitude and a longitude. And oftentimes when a user clicks, that's what you want. You want the user to, you want to know where they clicked. So if you think about what's happening in the leaflet code, the leaflet code knows, it knows because it set it up, it knows the map, it knows how big the map is in pixels, right? And it knows how big the map is in latitude and longitude because it's set that up as well. Every time you move the map, it has to ask for more data. Well, that's asking for more data based on latitude and longitude. So it knows that information. And so when you click on the map, it's converting a screen location in that rectangle to a latitude and longitude. It's doing it for you. It actually wouldn't be super difficult. It would probably be less, by being that I mean less than 20 or 30 lines of code for you to do that calculation yourself based on a screen point. Because it's all pretty linear math. So there's a minimum value here and a maximum value here and a minimum value here. Well, sorry, minimum here, maximum here. And you could convert just based on a linear formula. So this is 0 on this box. This would be whatever the maximum. I think we set it to be 400 pixels high. So 0 to 400. So if you got a value right around here, it'd be 200. And if you knew that this went from latitude 10 to 55, you could say, okay, well, a value of 200 is just halfway between 10 and 55. Okay. But it's nice that you don't have to write any of that. The mapping, it's a mapping tool, so it's nice that you don't have to write any of that code. Now, whenever you click anywhere, you get a value that represents latitude, longitude. Okay, so that's the value that we need in order to create our turf GIS feature, our dot on the map. So even if you don't end up doing something like this in your particular web application, it's a useful tool to have. You might do something like it. You need user interaction. You're asking the question, where did the user click? So, all right, so go to turf.js. turf JS. And then we need to go to the API doc. And I believe that that's one of the very first things is creating a new point. So this creates a new point. That's what we need. So we'll say, okay, so we're going to create a new point, and this is going to create a 0, 0. Where's 0, 0? And where in the world is 0, 0? Latitude, longitude. Yeah, prime meridian and the equator where they intersect. It's in Africa's big bite. So it's in the ocean, but it's south of south of the Sahara, east of or west of the rest of Africa. Okay, so if I go back and look at this code here, this came back as an object that has two attributes, LAT and LNG. So I can change this to say LNG dot lat, latitude, and LNG. Okay, so that's saying I want the latitude and the longitude values. Perhaps a cleaner way to write this that might make more sense in your head would be to say clicked point, and then say that's going to be lat long, and then we could just say clicked point dot lat and clicked point dot long. See, all we did there was we reassigned the value that was in this variable to a new variable. It's just a temporary variable. And so we said, okay, what's the latitude and longitude at that point? All right. Let's look at the turf API. It is true that technically, which one would be X in a coordinate system, latitude or longitude? X would be longitude. The longitude, X would be longitude, right? And so when we say longitude, latitude, when we say latitude, longitude, we're actually saying YX. And so a lot of the times you have to test. So I put latitude, longitude, I think that might be backwards. How would I know if it's backwards? Well, I could put it up on the map, and if I put it on the map, I will, I'll be able to tell which way it is, okay? So how do I put it on the map? I can go back to Leaflet real quick, and I'm just gonna add some GeoJSON. Actually, I've already got code that adds, I'll just do this really quickly here. So copy all of this data. I'm gonna weed out a lot of it. So I've got my 0.1 there. I'm going to create a GeoJSON layer just for that point, but I may or may not even leave this in. I'm going to delete all of the point layers stuff, except for I will leave in the I'm going to take this out too. Actually, I think I'm going to leave this out as well. So now it's just going to create that little, the teardrop by default, the upside down teardrop, the marker symbol. So this should work. Let's go back here and see. When I click, coordinates must be an array. Oh, okay. So it's expecting an array, which is easy to solve. We've noticed this before. In fact, this is already, no, it's not an array. So yeah, we need to do it like that. Feature of undefined. Should work. Let's log the point and see what it is. So when I click, oh, 0.1, sorry. So when I click, I do get an object. It is a feature. But then when I'm trying to add it to the map, I get an error. Let's go back there for a second. So in the leaflet documentation, when I add when I add something that is a GeoJSON, okay. I must need to create a new feature collection because I'm just adding a point and it's not letting it go in. All right. All right, so this is the method for creating a new feature collection. So basically, Leaflet is expecting a feature collection, not a single feature. I hadn't planned on actually trying to see it, but I believe it's important in this case. So if we want to show this in Leaflet, we need to make a feature collection first. So this is going to be our clicked. I'll just call it click PT. So what's happened is that that still didn't work. Cutting and pasting the code, that's the problem. All right. We've got our GeoJSON with Leaflet, and we want to get our points. That's the word. I deleted the return. Okay. All right. Okay, so I must have reversed something because everywhere I click, I do not get a point. If I zoom out, I should see, oh, no, those, see these yellow, see these orange dots that I'm creating? They're not in the right places. They show up other places in the world. So I've reversed my latitude and longitude. I can change this by reversing LNG and LAT. Now, I also want to see if I can get the default values up. Because I don't want them to show up as orange, because if they show up as orange, they don't look a whole lot different. There we go. Okay, now I'm making little dots everywhere. Default dots. I'm just going to delete this for now. Because in the end, all right, there we go. All right, so let's talk about this right now because it got a little bit confusing because I had the hiccup there. So if you look at the code here, when it says point to layer, I forgot to include the return command. What I was trying to do was take out all the code from where I cut and pasted from above. The problem that I had, I thought was related to not setting up a symbol at first. That wasn't the problem. Because you notice that I deleted the part about the symbol and it still makes the symbol. I thought that would work. My issue was that I left out the word return. And so it was doing, when it was going to create the layer, it wasn't getting any symbol. And so when it said return, it takes the symbol and actually gives it back to the function. So that's the problem that I had. So when I went and copied from the tutorial help, I got it right. Okay. I'm going to test one more thing because I'm not even sure that we needed to do this. Oh, it looks like we didn't. See how this still says 0.1? So we didn't even need to make it a feature collection. That was the first thing I tried. So we went around a little bit and we're fine. See how that's creating points. That's what we wanted. In reality, we don't even really want to add these to the maps. The only reason why we did any of this was to determine whether or not latitude and longitude was first or second. And it turns out that's the way it needs to be. It needs to be in X, Y. So it's longitude and then latitude. All right. Now, if you recall, the final thing that we want to do is have the user click the map and then filter out the earthquakes that are within a certain distance of that area. Okay. So we're going to run like an intersect in turf. Okay. So for now, we'll leave this in there. But the next thing that we're going to do is we've got our point, and we need to now do our intersection. Okay, which is actually, when we do points and polygons, it's this one, inside or within. Takes a point and a polygon, gets the other one. Determines if the point resides in the polygon, so it's the other one. There's actually a few different ways to do this. Takes a set of points and a set of polygons and returns the point that falls within that polygon. And then let's look for intersect. See if that one does what we want. You see any union, there's intersect right there. Takes two polygons and finds an intersection, so it's definitely not what we want. We want one of the ones that I said before. Inside. Takes a point, nope. Within. Takes a set of points and a set of polygons and returns the points that fall within the polygon. That's what we want, okay? So notice that it takes a set of points. What set of points are we talking about now? The earthquakes, right? And a set of polygons. Now, right now, we don't have a set of polygons. They usually clicked on a point. But we want to find, we want to create a polygon based on that point. So before we get to within, we need to do another thing. What do you, in ArcGIS, what would it be called? If we want to find all of the points within a certain distance, it's close. Within a certain distance of, how would we execute something like that? What's that? Select by location, and you could say within a distance of. That's exactly right. Another way to do that would be to create a buffer first, and then select by a thing. So that's how you do it here in turf. So we're going to take a buffer. So it's going to calculate the buffer given on a given radius. So let's do that. So we've got our point, and we're going to buffer our point. So we can just say buffer our point, and we're going to give it our point, and we're going to give it a distance. 500 seems okay. And then we've also got a unit, and you can just give it words. We're in the United States. We still use miles sometimes, so let's use miles. So any earthquake within 500 miles is what's going to end up being the result. But right now, we're only getting a buffer. So we're going to have the user click, we're going to build a point from that click, and then we're going to buffer that click 500 miles. Okay? And now we have this buffer, and we're going to feed the buffer into the within function. Where's the within function? Within. So we're basically linking up tools just like we would in ArcGIS. We're just using code to do it with. Okay, so we're saying points within, and we give it our points, which are now the earthquakes. And our search within is going to be buffered. So we're returning the earthquakes within the buffered area. Right? And one thing that we have to do here is, instead of showing the points at this location, we don't want to show them here anymore. By the way, I got to save this as, I'm going to call this GeoJSON turf underscore filter, so that we have a different name for it. So instead of showing the points here, we don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to get rid of this line because we don't need that. I'm going to take all of this code, which creates the points, and put it down here and say, okay, if the earthquake points are within, then show them. So now, if I refresh the page, I'm not going to get any earthquake data by default. I'm not going to show earthquake. Is this the earthquakes? No, that's the states. Oh, I changed the name of the file. Turf, what do I call it? Filtered. Filter. So I'm not going to get any earthquakes by default. No earthquakes show up. You can kind of see that the states show up, and so you can get an idea of where you might want to click. Okay, but if I click here somewhere in LA, I click that point, get an error. Quakes is not defined. Oh, that's because it's inside this other function. Where's quakes? Okay. Let's use tagged, because we do make a variable. So these are the tagged quakes. Doesn't Now it'll take those. That'll take those values from the that are tag is not defined. So for some reason inside of here we don't have access to the values because it's not a global variable. There we go. Now we're going to remove var from down here. So now as soon as this is done loading, there'll be a global variable called tag. The tag equates are just the quakes tagged with the state. So I click and breaks. Oh yeah, I don't have breaks for them anymore. So yeah, none of this is going to follow through. For now, let's just show the location of the points. Yep, there we go. So this is just going to show the location of the points, the earthquake points, when I click on a location. 157. I messed up somewhere. There we go. And click. And so those are all the earthquakes within 500 miles of that area. Okay. If I refresh it and click over here, those are all the earthquakes within 500 miles of that click. And if I want to change this to 300, do that there, refresh, and I could click here, and I get there. Now, if I keep clicking, I can keep getting more areas. So now I'm getting all the earthquakes within 500 miles of everywhere that I click. How could I solve that problem? Well, I could put something in here that removed this points layer if it existed. So at the beginning of user clicks, I could just say, first of all, if I do that, watch what happens. The first time I click, it's going to say points is not defined, doesn't exist. There's points right there. So I have to go up and create a var for that value, points. Now it'll still say, now it won't give me an error, but it'll still say it's undefined. The second time through, it actually says that it's something, it's a layer when I run it. So what I can do is say, put in some logic and say if ETS does not equal undefined, then what do I want to do? That's kind of a double negative, right? In English we say that's bad. Bad to do double negatives when you're talking. But what does it mean when I say if points does not equal undefined? How would I say that in English better? The points are the earthquakes that have appeared, the little blue dots for now. This is just this layer. It's just this layer that we've added. And so what I've said there is if the points are not equal to undefined, in other words, if the points are not equal to undefined, what's the opposite of not being undefined? Yeah, if I have this points layer already, exactly. Awesome. So if the points layer exists already, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the existing points. But I just say, I think it's pretty sure it's map.remove layer, and I say points. Now, every time I click, it's going to remove the old points and add in the new ones. So I'm always able to find those points that are within, this time I said 300 miles and I'm only going to get the ones in the United States because I commented out I'm using the tagged points, not the old data set points. All right, so that's how I could get just the points in a certain area. Was one of the things I was thinking of showing here on the map. Oh yeah, I told you I wanted to zoom in to those points at the end. Leaflet has a method for zooming to a set of features, or getting the extent of a certain feature. So if I look under, on a small screen, the thing looks slightly different here. Come, I can't go up. Okay, I want to zoom in. I want to fit bounds. Sets a map view that contains the given geographical bounds within the maximum zoom level possible. We've done this before. So I could just say right here, map.get, it's called get bounds, fit bounds. Fit bounds. And what bounds do I want it? Well, I want it to be the points dot, I'm pretty sure that's get bounds, but I don't know for sure. But I'm going to try it out. If it's not it, it's going to give me an error. Nope. So we got to go read the help and find out for a GeoJSON layer, or for a feature group, it's really an extension of that. What are, it's get bounds, returns a latitude feature group. Get bounds. Oh, it's a function. It requires you to put the parentheses, okay? To the thing that's red on the screen right now, those are the parentheses. Even though it's a function that doesn't return or that doesn't ask for anything, it still requires you to put that. Otherwise, it doesn't execute the function. It just says, here's the function. If you put the parentheses at the end of a function name, you're telling the function to run. If you don't put the parentheses, you're saying, here's the function. And it doesn't know what to do with the function. So here's it'll work now. So if I click it, it'll zoom in to the area and show you those earthquakes. I can zoom back out, click into another area. There's only one earthquake, so it zooms in pretty tight, really tight. I should add like a, zoom. You could add a button on the side of your map that would zoom to the full extent, or you could put it on the map and zoom to the full extent. There's only one earthquake in Washington, but now it zooms in to the extent of that area. All right, I think we're gonna stop there for today. I know it's a little bit early, but I have a 2:30 meeting today. I usually try not to schedule meetings right after class, but this was something that I had to do. I got a few meetings today. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop it there. But basically what we've done is demonstrated a few more things that turf can do. So you need to use turf to do something similar. I was going to try to do this with a ESRI layer, and maybe what I'll do is post a sample along with this other stuff, so that you can see it done on a different layer. And I'll try to strip out a bunch of other material so that it's just that thing. And so yeah, your assignment is to just do this with a different layer. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. I'm going to end the coast. All right. I'm going to take the restroom and get my computer. maps. Oh, another thing that I announce every semester, but I didn't announce it this semester, is that any of the ESRI virtual campus courses, we can sign you up for free. So if there's ever any course at ESRI that you want to sign up for, I don't know if there's one on JavaScript, I don't think so, but there's one on Python. That's what you were interested in. I forgot to get that. I'll get it to you today. Appreciate it.
I suppose, in the past, that's an issue. A couple things here and there, and I think, because I mean, everyone's saying, well, I mean, you have a better problem. We'll talk to everybody, you know, the meeting on Thursday night, eventually. It's not gonna be Monday. I could, well, that class is, she's doing a field on Monday. So we don't have class if you don't even retake it, I'm not gonna retake it. Yeah, really early. I mean, I can't go real early. I can be probably, if I work for the lunch and stuff, I can probably be 4. Do that. 4 probably better. It's on Chick-fil-A. She got that 10 degrees 8. Last time, yeah. We can plan, I think one more we can, get up here whenever we don't have anything going. That way we can get a portion of time out. We need to see how we're gonna play it. There's different techniques. Well, I understand, you really have to be made. It's just gotta be, you know, yeah, gotta be interaction. It's gotta be, I mean, you know, gotta do a turn thing on all, how they, I use it like in the line. I'm gonna talk about doing, you know, clicking something, looking something up. How I, I know you can do that.
I'm doing like mine movement, I sure stuff. I gotta make sure it's not too much.
Yeah. mean, really and truly, we don't have a whole lot of time.
Most of it.
Final presentations is after 13th of December or something. So we got, how many is, maybe the end of November.
Right. This is really fun.
It's almost over. I'll take a look, see what's up there. I need to write, I now need to go through and write these days down here. I'll try to keep all this stuff in here.
Big meal, Saturday.
We could do Mondays and Thursdays, and then see what we get done on those, and then we need to, probably drive back down here, Saturday. We can plan that, if we get something like that, we can, let my wife drive down here. And that way she can go do her thing, and hey, for while you do this. Get it all worked out.
Yes, sir. Let's go. Can't settle in.
Yeah.
What were you gonna get? You're like a year.
Well, at first I was trying to do all the counties in Mississippi. That's pretty way too much. Now I was like, well, I'll just do states. That's gonna be a lot. So what I was thinking about was maybe doing southeast U.S., which would be basically like Arkansas, across down to Florida, and maybe like have the state record deer. So that's only like around 13, 14 states, maybe. That might probably be too big. Have it maybe where, I don't know if it necessarily pop on the picture, but maybe just pop up a score over there. Like put on the state, and pop up Florida, state record whitetail. Just, well, I guess it'd be kind of like we did in the beginning. Yeah. And see, like this, he touched on this today, talking about, you can get into having a problem like that, if that file, in this case, image, is taken off the internet for some reason, like the site redoes or whatever, and so that's not there anymore, then the link will work. So it may be one of those things where I just need to save them, keep them zipped up, and then, that would be good.
A good look at one. Look up. Apps that have use that kind of thing.
Well, when I just search for that in HTML.
Yeah, I think if you do a find something like that, like with agent level, and get the source code.
I'll do a little research on that and then see the best way, because I mean, the best way to do it might be something different, some sort of exertion or something. I'm not sure. I'll see what I can do. I don't know if that's great or not. Now, you're not having.
Yeah. We're gonna have like a pop-up. So like a pop-up. Sorry.
Yeah, So I don't think it's gonna be you with crazy nature.
Yes, we told you.
Well, it's not worth it.